boy, why didn't I do this change earlier? God damn, it feels so nice. Feel one with the car. Feel one with the car. It's finally time for you to go from there to in there. Welcome, Moz here. I hope you're having a splendid day. Today we will do something yet again. I don't know how many of these we have had. It is time to install the meinlenkrad steering wheel, and this has almost been sitting here for almost a year, and together with this stuff. But today we will finally be installing it in the 30th anniversary MX5, and that will be more or less the last thing I will do with regards to the interior, since previously we have done the racing Stratos in Alcantara with the custom orange, and in a recent video then we did install the IL Motorsport orange dial for the tachometer, and the next thing we will do is to install a new steering wheel. And today's video, I was thinking of how I should do it. Should it be a more in-depth modification video on how to, but I'll do it with a little bit of a twist. I will try to talk about this from an aspect as well of the experience, the feel, and how I feel the car transforms with a wheel similar to this then. And as you can see, or I don't know if you can see this, but this is in full Alcantara. The outer diameter is still the same as the OEM steering wheel, but we do have a, how should I say, padding on the inwards of the wheel, so the wheel itself is much thicker than the OEM one. And I really do hate the OEM steering wheel because, in my opinion, it feels way too thin. And I think on the 30th anniversary, with all the Alcantara, etc., they should have done something with the steering wheel to accommodate all of the other Alcantara which is in the car. So hopefully with this, it will give a very nice feel sitting in the car, looking inside the car, and of course then driving the car. So I will try to do a more of a emotional video, if you want to call it like that, on how I feel the wheel works with the car and how it makes the driving experience different compared to the OEM steering wheel. So that is what we will be doing today. But before we get there, if you do like the content of the channel with similar videos to this, tracking and so on, do remember to subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. But with that said, let's get on with the video. What most likely will be the most difficult part of this installation is to remove the airbag from the steering wheel. And as you can see, there are 3 holes, one here and one here and one over here. So behind these holes, when the airbag is actually then sitting on the steering wheel, is that the airbag do have 3 arms, we could say, or springs, and we need to push those springs then by accessing them through these holes, and we can use a screwdriver or similar. And once we do get contact with those springs, the airbag will then release from the steering wheel. But before we do that, we first want to remove or disconnect the negative terminal on the battery, so we don't get error codes and also potentially the risk of getting an airbag exploded in your face. I have experienced that, and it is not a nice experience. So first we will unplug the battery, we'll pump the brakes to deplete any electricity that might be left in the system, and then we will start by removing the airbag, and then we will start unplugging stuff. So we'll remove the negative terminal, and for that we have a 10mm bolt which we need to loosen up, and then we can lift the terminal off the battery. We can put it aside here. And now we can go in and pump the brakes or similar, or just let the system be for 10 minutes or so, and then we will start removing the airbag. Before I start removing the airbag, I just wanted to show you what I did. So I did put some masking tape on the steering wheel and also something on this trim piece here on the car itself. And what this is then is for reference on where the center is, or how the steering wheel is positioned now. And what, as I mentioned earlier, I won't be removing these trim pieces, so we will not be able to just easily swap this. But what I did is I did take a piece of masking tape which goes across on this top portion of the trim piece here, so we will remove this from this wheel then and transfer it over to the other one, and then this back portion of the masking tape will still remain on the car, and we will know where center is, or somewhat where center is. And it is not a big issue if we do get something off center, because I will be getting a realignment anyway, and I will then ask them to recenter the steering. So it's not a big issue if you don't get it 100% straight then. I tried to capture how the spring is situated through this axis hold down, but it was impossible. So you have to shed some light here by yourself and see what it looks like. But once you get your tool in, I will use a punch like this. We'll put it in and then bend upwards, and that will release the spring. So I will start with the driver hand side and the one in the middle, and then we'll do on the one on the passenger side. I think the one on the passenger side will be a little bit more tricky once we have released these two. So I'll start with this one. Hopefully you can see what I will be doing to release this, and then we will take it on from there. So that was one side, and it went pretty quickly. And the one on the bottom here, I don't see anything, so I don't know if I can remove this. No, I think I need to reposition, so I'll move the camera so you can see what I do. There you go. So that was the one in the middle. It was a little bit farther in to the left, I believe I pushed. And there we got that one. Let's see now the one on the passenger side. That one I think might be a little bit tricky. What I ended up doing was that it was difficult to access this side once the spring on the left side and on the center side was removed. So what I did was to push back the airbag in its original position, and then I started again with the passenger side. Now we'll do the center, and then we will do the driver side, because the driver side is pretty easy to see what you're doing, and the center one shouldn't be that much of an issue. So we'll redo that again. There we go. And there's a risk or a chance of that you push back the springs when you are trying to do one side or the other. But I felt that it was simpler just to start on the passenger side, do the center, then do the driver side. And as you can see, the airbag is loose. Now let's go ahead with the coming steps. We need to be a little bit careful when removing the airbag itself. Hopefully this will not pop. It will be very, very bad, and but hopefully that will not happen then. So but if we gently pull this out, we can see we have two connectors here. I have seen other type of airbags where there are actually two connectors and this one on top, but we only have the one on top here and the yellow one. This one on top, I think it is a spring loaded mechanism, so we need to depress somewhere here and pull this one out without damaging any of the cables. There we go. For this yellow one, we need a flathead screwdriver that is small, and this black portion of the connector we need to pull out in order to release the mechanism, in order to be able to remove the connector itself. Let's see if I can do it from this side so you can see. Oh, it's not possible. Oops, I pulled it out too long, but that's okay. And now we can remove the connector like that. And now I will put this aside, so if it pops off, it doesn't damage anything and we don't get a shock. So be careful with this one. I'll be right back. Before we attack the bolt holding the steering wheel in place, there is one more connector we need to remove, and as you can see, two wires that goes to the buttons of the steering wheel, and that is attached to this white connector, as you can see. And this one is also spring loaded, so we just push that little white tab down and try to pull at the same time. Easier said than done. There we go. The bolt is a 21mm bolt. I will use my wrench, and I have an extension, as you can see, so we don't, while we are removing this, that we damage anything on the steering wheel, etc. But that is fine, and the torque spec we will get to once we are reassembling everything. So let's see. And also, I don't know if you can see, this has a how should I say, a marking, and then there's a marking on the steering wheel itself. So I think if you are removing the steering wheel and doing like a, I don't know, whatever you want to do and put it back into place, this is a good way also to get it back in the same position as you had it before then. Well, as we are removing the steering wheel in total and putting a new one in place, it will be a little bit difficult then to use this marker as a reference. So now let's see if we can break this loose. That wasn't according to the torque spec, I can say. That was really tightened. So what I will do is leave some threads left on the bolt. This is just to get the wheel out, and why I'm doing this is because we want to wiggle the steering wheel to get it off the splines, and if we don't have the bolt stopping the steering wheel once we are pulling the wheel towards us, in case the wheel comes out and you are using some force, you can get the wheel in your face. Hence why we have the bolt threaded a little bit before we remove the wheel completely. So we'll see if we can wiggle the steering wheel out. I really hope so we don't get out into any issues, because I don't have a wheel puller here. Well, I'll simply just try to wiggle the wheel and hopefully it will come out. But it's sitting very tightly. Oh, come to daddy, come to daddy. Let's see if we can gently remove the wheel like that and be gentle with this cable here. Now the wheel is off. It is quite light, I have to say. And the next step is to assemble the aftermarket wheel. I can tell right away that the aftermarket wheel is heavier due to the padding that we have on it, or extra padding. And as you can see, hopefully I've added back the tape that we had on the OEM wheel, and hopefully this will line up with the piece of tape that we still have left on the car. So what we need to do is simply just put it in place and see if it lines up, and then we will start reassembling everything. I think that should be good enough. And again, then if need be, we will cater for this while we are doing a wheel alignment, but it is almost exactly the same as when I did remove the wheel, so I'm fine with that. Next is to torque down the 21mm nut. The wheel is fully seated, I believe, and that is that. And the torque spec of this is 30 to 36 foot-pound, or 40 to 49 newton meters. I will do somewhere in between. I'll do 45 newton meters, and of course you need to have a torque wrench for that, or if you have a very good feeling with your hands, you would know how much that is. But I will use a torque wrench, and once that is done, we will continue with the reassembly of the airbag. So the next step is to connect the wiring. First, I will reattach the white connector having the cables for the buttons, etc. And we just push that into place like that. Next is to install the airbag module connector, and this can go in only one way, like that. And we push the center black part in to lock it, like so. And then we have the horn connector left, and let's see if we can push that back in. So before we do assemble this on, there are 3 pins here holding springs that then springs the actual horn, and we want to get those in properly so we don't have a stuck horn. So it seems to be springing back, which is a good sign. Before we know we have connected everything correctly, the last step is to get the negative terminal back in place, and for that, again, then it's this 10mm bolt that we need to get in place. Like that. No airbags did explode, so that is a good sign. Man, oh man, I have not been this excited over a car modification for a very, very long time. I can just be sitting here touching it and we'll get all dirty and greasy and yucky, but that's fine. We love detailing, so that is all good. But I mean, it looks fantastic just looking into the car with the shift knob from Racing with Alcantara and the orange and the dial that we have. I think it completes the car interior wise in a really, really good way. It matches the Alcantara on the dash and on the seats and so on. And also from a feels perspective, just sitting here, it feels so much nicer in my opinion compared to the OEM steering wheel. Now the wheel is a little bit high, but it feels really, really nice and it looks nice. And we will end the video up with a driving impression and see if it made any change from the actual driving feel or not. But just holding it in my hand, it feels really, really nice. And together with the shift knob, I mean, these are the two things you touch the most in a car. It's the shift knob if you have a manual, that is, of course, and also the steering wheel. But with that said, let's wrap the video up with a driving impression. So I have now been driving for, I don't know, 20-30 kilometers or so, and I thought I'd give you my initial feel and impressions of the new steering wheel. I mean, it doesn't just have to be something that I have ordered. It could be something else, but something that is not the OEM steering wheel. And in my opinion, as I was backing out of the garage, I was feeling like, man, why the hell didn't I do this sooner? But now we have done it and it feels fantastic. But let's start with the actual driving aspect. If I feel anything has changed as such, nothing has changed with regards to how the steering feel is, etc. That still is the same, as we have the same outer diameter of the steering wheel compared to the OEM one. So from that aspect, everything is the same, at least from what I'm feeling at the moment. But what does feel different is the tactile feel, what you're seeing visually, etc. This enhances the drive so much. It needs to be felt and experienced, and that is if you don't like the OEM steering wheel, that is. If you do like it, maybe this would be then how should I say, a negative change or a negative impact on the driving feel and the experience. But in my case, I feel that it gave me exactly what I wanted. It feels rigid. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the OEM wheel is so thin, and as this car vibrates and everything with that thin steering wheel, it feels like it's almost going to break or fall off. But with this one, it feels more rigid. It feels more nice in the hand with the thickness. I like it that it is thicker, but it is not overly thick in my opinion. And I didn't go for the extra indentations on where the thumbs are, the thumb rests then. But still, it feels really nice to hold the wheel 1/4 to 3, and again then it fits the bill for me perfectly. It fits the visual aspect of the car, and also we have the 12 noon marker, and also we have the orange dial, and in my case I feel that it has become a more driver focused car, if that makes any sense. I don't know, hopefully you get that. But even though we don't have a perfect match between the center mark or the 12-hour mark and the dial, the tactile, because the tactile is in a matte finish, so it won't be same as the color of the car and so on. It will be very difficult to get it the same. But all in all, I have to say I really, really do like this change. And yeah, if you are thinking of switching the wheel to a full Alcantara, part Alcantara, or something with perforated leather, etc., etc., do it. You will like it a lot. In my opinion, I think it has changed the driving experience to a much, much better feel compared to the OEM one. I didn't like the OEM one from the get-go. Even my steering wheel on my ID3 is nicer than the OEM one, in my opinion. So that is that, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to the driving impressions and how this steering wheel feels and looks while driving, and of course being stationary, it just looks nice. So that is that. If you have any questions at all, just hit me up in the comment sections below, and I will try to answer them the best I can. And also, if you did like today's video, give it a big thumbs up, and do remember to subscribe if you like similar videos, track videos, car detailing. That will support me a lot, and I will be very thankful. But with that said, I'll continue the drive and enjoy it, and I'll be seeing you on the next one.